My son pointed at me in the hospital lobby and shouted, "He doesn't deserve insurance, he's already halfway in the grave." Laughter broke out near the elevators. A nurse looked away. No one said a word. I stood there, shaking, exposed, while they wheeled her in for surgery. Then the doctor stepped out, holding a clipboard. The name at the top wasn't mine. Whose chart was that? And why did I suddenly feel like the patient being cut open? Why is her name tied to my Medicare ID? I followed that doctor's clipboard like it held my soul. My legs felt like iron, but my eyes stayed locked on the name printed in bold across the chart, Miranda Lane. I didn't know any Miranda. But my Medicare ID was tied to her chart. Somehow, some way, my name had funded her surgery. The hallway was colder than it should have been. I turned the corner and found my son leaning casually against the wall, arms crossed, phone in hand like nothing had happened. As if I hadn't just been humiliated in front of half the hospital. As if I hadn't just watched my identity walk away on a gurney. "What did you do?" I asked, voice low, cracking. He didn't flinch. Didn't look up from the screen. "What are you talking about, Dad?" I pointed to the nurse's station behind me. "That woman. Miranda Lane. Why is her surgery chart billed to my Medicare?" He smirked, then finally looked at me. "You always told me to help people." I did. My jaw clenched. "She's your girlfriend, isn't she?" He shrugged like a teenager caught stealing bubble gum. "You're overthinking it." "No. I'm reading it." I tapped my chest. "That's my Medicare number. My name. My benefits." He exhaled, then looked around like I was the embarrassment. "If you can't keep your memory straight, don't blame me." That line cut deeper than I expected. He said it without blinking. Without shame. My hands trembled, not out of age, but rage. "I never gave you permission. I never even met her until last week." He stepped closer, lowering his voice but not his arrogance. "So what? You'd rather she die on the floor because you're clinging to paperwork?" I blinked hard. "You forged it, didn't you?" No answer. "You used my name to get her under that knife. You stole from me, from the government, from every senior who paid into this system." Still nothing. Just that cocky grin he inherited from a stranger, not me. Then the nurse returned. Her smile was plastic. "Excuse me, sir. Mr. Hensley? The administrator would like a quick word. Just down this hallway." She didn't wait for me to answer. She just turned and started walking. I looked back at my son. He was still smirking. "I'll see you at home," he said. "Maybe take a nap first. You're looking confused." My blood felt like it reversed in my veins. I followed the nurse. The admin's office was warm, but sterile. Glass walls. A fake plant near the window. On the desk sat a printed copy of my Medicare account summary. The woman behind the desk didn't introduce herself. Just gestured to the chair and said, "There was a claim filed yesterday morning. For a surgery completed this afternoon." I didn't sit. "Yes. And I didn't approve it." She nodded, slowly. Then her eyes softened. "Sometimes these things happen with family. We understand." "No. You don't." There was a beat of silence. Then she carefully slid the claim form forward. "This is the signature on file." I looked down. It looked like mine. The curves were close. The capital W in Walter was just right. But something was off, like someone had traced my identity instead of living it. "That's not me," I said. "That's a copy of me." The admin leaned forward slightly. "Do you have your card with you?" I reached into my wallet. My heart dropped. The slot was empty. I always keep it here. She didn't accuse. She didn't even blink. But something in her posture shifted. A flicker of doubt. Or worse, pity. "Sir," she said gently, "could you step into our privacy suite for a few more verification questions?" Privacy suite? Verification questions? I wasn't some lost patient confused about his birthday. I was a man under attack. But I followed. Down another hallway. Past two nurses whispering. One pointed. I heard the word, fraud. I wasn't sure if it was meant for me, or about me. Either way, it stuck. In the small room, she clicked the door shut and sat across from me. "What's your date of birth?" she asked. "October 4th, 1952. "Social?" I gave it. Carefully. She typed. Screen blinked. Then she paused. "There's been a flag." "A flag?" "Yes. Your account triggered a billing conflict this morning. Which means another claim was attempted under your number yesterday." She folded her hands. "Sir, have you given power of attorney to anyone?" I shook my head. "Never." Her lips tightened. "Then someone may have done it for you." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The file says you approved the surgery, but that signature came from a different zip code. Administrator said, there's a police report, but it hasn't been filed, yet." I sat in silence across from that administrator, her fingers drumming the desk like a ticking bomb. Her voice was flat but her eyes tried to be kind. "The file was flagged, yes. But no action has been taken. Yet." "Police report?" I asked. She nodded. "It's just a draft. But if it moves forward, it will be filed under your name. Not his." I felt the heat rise in my chest. "So I'm the criminal now?" She didn't answer. Just slid a yellow envelope across the desk. "You have a right to challenge this. But it's best done quickly." I didn't touch the envelope. I just stood, nodded once, and walked out before my knees gave in. The evening light hit my porch like a faded photograph, warm, nostalgic, and deceiving. The house my wife and I had built together now smelled like burnt leftovers and betrayal. I walked in and found my son in the kitchen, laughing on a video call, barefoot and careless. His girlfriend leaned on the counter, sipping from a wine glass I hadn't seen since my 60th birthday. My daughter-in-law sat at the table. She didn't look up from her laptop. I held the envelope in my hand like a grenade. "We need to talk." My son muted his call and turned. "You always say that when you're about to start drama. You forged my signature. You used my Medicare number." He snorted. "You're still on that?" I opened the envelope and tossed the consent form on the table. "That is felony fraud." He picked it up like it was a napkin. "It's paperwork. Chill out." Then came her voice. Calm. Cold. Sharper than the scalpel used on her. "You'll bury him faster with shame than any illness ever could." I turned to her. "What did you say?" She didn't blink. "He's stressed, overwhelmed. This was just one less thing to worry about. Would you really rather see him in jail than help us keep him alive?" I couldn't believe it. "You think you're the victim here?" My son raised his voice. "She's recovering from surgery. You're coming in like a prosecutor instead of a father." "I'm not your cover story," I snapped. "I'm not your scapegoat." "That's right," he said, stepping forward. "You're not anything. Not anymore." The room went silent. Then the daughter-in-law spoke, still looking at her screen. "We've been patient, Walter. You've been slipping lately. You forget your pills. You leave lights on. Maybe this is just the beginning." I looked at her. You really believe that? She didn't answer. Then my son dropped the real blow. I need you to sign something. He reached into a folder on the counter and slid a crisp document toward me. It's a clarification. Just says you approve the insurance use. Covers you. Covers us. I didn't touch it. And if I don't? He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Then you find another place to live. I stared at him. This was my house. Bought with my retirement. Paid in full. I had rebuilt the porch with my own hands just 3 summers ago. He was 6 when I built the swing that still hung from the front tree. You don't get to evict me from my own home. He smirked. The deed was transferred 2 years ago, remember? For tax purposes. Your idea, not mine. He turned and walked away like the conversation was over. And that's when I saw her, my daughter. She had been standing by the stairs the entire time. Not saying a word. Arms crossed, lip trembling. Her eyes flicked between us. And when I met her gaze, she looked down. She wasn't ready to believe me. But she wasn't comfortable siding with him either. That flicker of guilt in her eyes would stick with me longer than any insult. Later that night, I went to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and opened my wallet. The card slot was still empty. Gone. I checked the drawer. Nothing. The copy I kept in my old tax folder, gone too. They hadn't just stolen my name. They had erased me. I walked out to the porch. It was dark now. The street was still. That's when I saw her, Mrs. Clancy, from across the street. She was walking her dog, but she stopped when she saw me. Her eyes lingered. No wave. No smile. Just a look. That same look people give you when your name ends up in the obituaries before your body does. I went back inside and stared at the empty slot in my wallet. My name was gone. But if they thought I'd let it end there, they didn't know the man who raised them. Sir, your insurance file shows you approved the procedure. The next morning, I sat in the waiting area of the Medicare regional office, holding a ticket with the number 148. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of printers and the occasional buzz of fluorescent lights. A toddler played with a plastic fire truck in the corner. I watched the wheels spin, thinking about how easily things roll away when no one's paying attention. Just like my name. When the clerk called me, I followed her past cubicles and posters about benefits and fraud prevention, posters I suddenly felt too familiar with. She motioned to a chair, then logged into her terminal. How can I help you today, sir? I handed her a printout from the hospital. That surgery, billed to this number. That's my Medicare ID. But the patient isn't me. She typed for a few seconds, then froze. Sir, your insurance file shows you approved the procedure. I blinked. I didn't. That's what I'm trying to tell you. She clicked into another screen. Her brow furrowed. Then she looked at me cautiously. There's a signed authorization form on file. I leaned forward. May I see it? She hesitated, then turned the monitor slightly toward me. A digital scan appeared. My name was there, written in black ink. The signature, almost perfect. But the loop on the H in Hensley was wrong. Too tight. A forgery, no doubt. But a convincing one. That's not me, I said. It looks like mine, but it isn't. She turned the screen back. I'll make a note and flag the file. Can I press charges? She gave a small nod, but her tone was neutral. Once it goes through internal review. If it qualifies as fraud, it'll escalate automatically. I leaned back, trying to breathe, but my chest tightened again. Sir, she said, lowering her voice. Do you know the person who might have submitted this? I nodded. My son. That got her attention. Her fingers hovered above the keyboard. Then I need to ask you a few more questions. She pulled up a timeline of transactions. It was all there, claims submitted under my number, approval logged by a power of attorney file, which, apparently, existed in their system. But I never gave anyone power of attorney, I said. She paused. According to this, someone submitted it in person last Thursday. Where? She clicked into a camera log but didn't open it fully. I'm not supposed to show this, she murmured, but I was working that day. I saw a man come in, said he was helping his elderly father file updates. Hoodie, glasses, nervous. Honestly? He didn't look like someone who belonged in here. I felt like vomiting. I need to file a report, I said. She nodded and printed out a complaint form. Write everything. Detail, dates, names. We'll investigate. I picked up the pen. My hand shook. They think I did this, I muttered. They're going to come after me. She looked up, softer now. Only if you don't speak first. On the way home, the radio kept playing commercials for insurance upgrades and senior care plans. Each voice cheerful, robotic, promising safety. I turned it off. When I got home, the front door was locked. I knocked. A moment later, my daughter-in-law opened it, eyes half rolled. You forget your keys now too. I stepped inside. The living room smelled like disinfectant and takeout. My son was on the couch, controller in hand, playing some first-person shooter. His girlfriend was stretched out with her leg bandaged, scrolling on her phone. I walked in slowly. Who filed the power of attorney form? He paused his game. Oh, we're back on that? You forged it. No. I filled it out. You signed it. Remember? You're lying. My daughter-in-law chimed in. Why don't you just let this go? She needed the surgery. Using my name? The girlfriend didn't look up. Your name saved my life. I turned to her. You don't even know me. I didn't need to. He said you'd do anything for him. And that was the moment the floor disappeared beneath me. You're not just stealing from me, I said, voice trembling. You're turning me into a criminal. He shrugged. What's the worst that happens? You're old. You'll get a warning. She gets better. We all move on. I stared at him like I didn't recognize him anymore. Maybe I didn't. That night, I sat alone on the back porch, listening to the wind knock against the empty swing I once built for him. The same swing he used to fall asleep in when he was 5. I remembered holding him, brushing the dirt off his scraped knees, promising to protect him from the world. And now he was the world I needed protection from. I opened my wallet again. Still empty. My Medicare card, gone. Everything stolen. But they didn't take one thing. I still had my name. And if they thought they could wear it like a disguise. They were about to learn what it cost to steal from the man who gave them everything. The phone buzzed. A voicemail from the Medicare office. The case had been marked under investigation, and my name was officially flagged. Local pharmacist refused my prescription, your coverage is suspended. It was a small pharmacy. The kind where the same kid who stocks the shelves rings you up. I'd been coming there for over 20 years. They knew me by name. But when I handed over my refill slip, the boy behind the counter frowned and tapped at his computer. Then he stepped away to call the manager. The manager came out, Mr. Kilroy, someone I played poker with during VFW breakfasts. His face was different this time. Concerned. Embarrassed. Walter, I'm sorry, he said, lowering his voice. Your Medicare account's showing inactive. The system's flagged it for review. What? I can't fill this. Your coverage is suspended. My hands went cold. I just used it last week. He nodded. I know. Something's going on. You may want to call them again. I walked out into the sun with an empty bag, my lungs burning hotter than my chest. My blood pressure meds were in that refill. Now they were stuck behind a firewall with my name misused and my identity on hold. The system didn't see me as a person anymore, just a risk code. When I got home, I went straight to my filing cabinet. Birth certificates. Tax returns. Property records. I opened the legal folder. I had photocopies of every document I'd ever signed. I pulled out my will. My hands froze on the page. My name was still at the top, but everything else, beneficiaries, signatory witnesses, executor, had been updated. The date at the bottom read February 3rd. That wasn't the original will. That was a new version. Filed. Witnessed. And submitted without my knowledge. There it was, my son's name as primary heir. No mention of my daughter. My granddaughter. Nothing about splitting things fairly. No explanation. No consent. He had not only used my Medicare account. He had rewritten my legacy. I took the folder and walked into the kitchen. My daughter-in-law was chopping vegetables like she was on a cooking show, humming to herself. I dropped the will on the table. She glanced over. Is this a joke? I asked. She didn't blink. You talked about changing it last year. Maybe you forgot. I never changed a word. That's not my signature. Looks like it. I leaned closer. You're in on this? Her expression didn't change. You're not well, Walter. Everyone sees it. We're just doing what's best for the family. I laughed once. Bitter. Hollow. What family? I left before I could say something I'd regret. I didn't have a plan, so I drove. No destination. Just roads. Memories. Rage. I found myself parked outside the old grocery store where my son had worked his first job as a teenager. Bagging groceries. Saving for a used car. He was proud then. Honest. He used to leave sticky notes on my dashboard, "Thanks, Dad." And now? Now he was turning my name into currency. The next day, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Rachel. My son's ex-girlfriend. Not the current one who called me paperwork. No, Rachel was the girl he nearly married. Kind. Smart. I always liked her. Walter, she said, surprised. Is everything okay? No, I said. I need to ask you something. I told her everything. The Medicare fraud. The forged documents. The power of attorney lies. The will. She didn't interrupt. Not once. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, he used to borrow my credit card. Told me he'd pay me back every month. He never did. Once, I found out he had taken out a small loan in my name. Said it was for us. But the money disappeared. My stomach turned. Why didn't you report him? Because I loved him, she said. And because I was stupid. No, I said. You were just lied to. There was another pause. I'm sorry, Walter, she said. I wish I had told you then. Maybe none of this would have happened. Her voice cracked. It's not your fault. Still, she said, I never thought he'd turn on you. That night, I found the final piece of his plan. Buried in a drawer of unopened mail. A letter from the county clerk's office, confirming a change of beneficiary on my life insurance policy. All funds, in case of death, now pointed only to him. Not my daughter. Not my granddaughter. Just him. He wasn't trying to use my Medicare for a favor. He was trying to wipe me off the books entirely. As I stared at the paper, the front door opened. His girlfriend's voice rang out, "Dinner's ready. Don't forget your pills, Walter, we wouldn't want another incident. Has your child ever twisted your name into a weapon? This document makes him your medical power of attorney." The manila envelope arrived by courier, not mail. Heavy, official, stamped in blue ink. I knew before opening it that it wouldn't be good news. Inside, neat as a dagger, lay a stack of legal documents. The first page was titled Medical Power of Attorney. It bore my name as grantor and my son's as agent. I never signed this. The signature was identical to mine, but too perfect, like it had been printed from a template rather than scrawled by a human hand. The date on it was last Thursday. The same day the clerk said a nervous man in a hoodie visited the office. I called the number at the bottom of the page. A law firm I didn't recognize answered. "Good afternoon, Barker and Ames." "This is Walter Hensley," I said, voice shaking. "I received a package from you. Power of attorney documents." "Yes, Mr. Hensley," the woman replied smoothly. "Per your request." I never made any request. There was a pause, then the polite tone cracked just slightly. "One moment." She put me on hold. When the line clicked back, a man's voice replaced hers. "Mr. Hensley, this is Attorney Ames. According to our file, you visited our office last week to formalize these documents." "I did not." "Sir." "I did not." Another pause. Then his voice softened. "I'm going to need you to come in." By the time I reached their downtown office, my palms were slick. The waiting area smelled like fresh paint and cheap cologne. Behind frosted glass, silhouettes moved, law clerks, assistants, people in suits. Ames came out personally. He was younger than I expected. His eyes darted nervously when I refused his handshake. "I want an explanation," I said. He gestured to his office. "Please, Mr. Hensley." Inside. The blinds were drawn. On the desk sat a slim folder, my name embossed on the tab. He opened it to show me a new will, notarized and witnessed. This version left everything to my son. The property, the accounts, the insurance. My daughter's name was nowhere. "That's a forgery," I said flatly. He cleared his throat. "Mr. Hensley, your son provided identification. He provided your social security card. He signed in front of a notary. We had no reason to believe." I slammed my hand on the desk. "You had every reason. The photo ID, the signature, the voice, it's all fraud." He swallowed. "Then we have a serious problem." "Not we." "Me." "No," he said. "If this is fraud, then our firm's at risk too." He reached into a drawer and handed me a business card. "This is a criminal attorney I trust. Call him tonight." When I left the building, the late afternoon sun hit my eyes like a spotlight. Across the street stood the First Union Bank, my bank. I decided to walk in. The teller's smile flickered when she saw my ID. She whispered to the manager. "Mr. Hensley," the manager said, stepping forward, "we've temporarily restricted your account due to suspicious activity." "What suspicious activity?" "Large transfers to an account in your son's name. I didn't authorize them." He looked at me, pity again. "We'll need to verify all your recent transactions." And that's when I felt the eyes. Behind me, in the line, Mrs. Clancy from across the street. Mr. Kilroy from the pharmacy. A young mother who goes to my church. All staring. Whispering. "There he is," I heard one say. The old man from that post. I turned. What post? The young mother's cheeks flushed. She looked down. I pulled out my phone. Opened Facebook. And there it was, a public post from my son's girlfriend. A smiling photo of him helping her from the hospital bed. Caption: saving my dad from dementia lies, sometimes you have to protect him from himself. Hundreds of likes. Comments. People I'd known for years clicking little hearts under a story that painted me as a cruel, senile fraudster. I left the bank without cash. Without dignity. When I got home, the living room was quiet. My son was upstairs. My daughter-in-law was on her phone. And there, at the foot of the stairs, was my daughter. She'd come over without me knowing. "Dad," she said softly. "What's happening?" I stopped in the doorway. "You tell me. You've been watching from the sidelines." Her eyes dropped. "They said you agreed to all this. That you were forgetting things. That you needed oversight. Do you believe them?" She bit her lip. "I don't know." That hurt more than a slap. "I've never lied to you," I said. "I may forget to take out the trash. But I don't forget who I am." She glanced up the stairs, where her brother's door was shut. Then back at me. Her voice barely a whisper: "If they're lying, you need to prove it. Fast." Then she walked past me, out the door. No hug. No promise. Just a flicker of doubt. But that flicker was enough. She wasn't completely lost. Not yet. I went to my room and locked the door. Spread out the documents on my bed like a battlefield map: power of attorney, forged will, insurance letter, my frozen accounts. They weren't just draining my benefits. They were rewriting my history. My name. Erasing me while I was still breathing. Outside, a low engine rumbled. I peeked through the blinds. A police cruiser idled at the curb. The officer inside was on his phone, not looking at me. But he didn't drive away either. Waiting. Watching. I sat on the edge of my bed, the stolen papers in my lap, staring at the blue lights reflecting on my window. My name was under investigation, and my freedom might be next. Your name just triggered a fraud alert. I dialed the Medicare fraud hotline from the landline in my bedroom. I didn't want to use the house Wi-Fi, didn't trust who was listening, who might be watching. I sat at the edge of my bed, surrounded by every forged document, false signature, and printed lie they'd used against me. A woman answered. Calm. Professional. "This is the office of the Inspector General. Please state your concern." "My name is Walter Hensley. Someone used my Medicare card to pay for a surgery I didn't approve. Someone filed false power of attorney under my name. I need to report identity theft and insurance fraud." She took my information. Slowly. Carefully. I answered everything. Social Security number. Last 5 appointments. When the fraud began. When I told her who did it, my own son, she didn't gasp. She didn't say, "I'm sorry." She just said, "You're not the first." That sentence hit harder than anything. By the time we hung up, I had a fraud case number, a pending audit file, and one clear warning: do not confront them directly again. Let the investigation do its job. But I couldn't sit still. Not now. I took my wallet, my notepad, and the old flip phone I kept in my sock drawer, the one my son didn't know about, and walked 3 blocks down to the local branch of my bank. I didn't walk up to the counter. I asked to see the branch manager. When he appeared, Mr. Colby, a decent man who knew my name, his face tensed. "Walter," he said, motioning me into his glass office, "I've been meaning to call you." "I'm here to lock everything down," I said. He nodded. "We've flagged several accounts already, pending internal fraud review. Your son. He's no longer authorized on anything. He opened his system, typing fast. We can freeze all transfers, lock down beneficiaries, and generate a new customer ID for your profile. Do it. He paused. This will cut off any autopayments they've scheduled in your name. Perfect. He glanced at me. Sir, your name just triggered a fraud alert when I pulled it up. Then I'm doing this just in time. When I got home, the kitchen was empty. My daughter-in-law had left a casserole out, covered in foil, labeled with my name like I was a patient, not a person. The television buzzed in the living room. News anchors laughed about politics. None of them knew I was at war in my own house. I went to my room and started writing. Every bill they touched. Every transaction they faked. Every date, call, and memory that connected the dots. I created a spreadsheet, old-fashioned, by hand, with a ballpoint pen. My fingers hurt. My back throbbed. But my brain was fire. And fire was the one thing they hadn't stolen from me. Later that night, I stepped onto the front porch just as the streetlights blinked on. A few cars passed. Leaves blew across the sidewalk. A neighbor walked their dog and crossed to the other side without waving. I heard a whisper from the yard behind mine. Isn't that him? Two silhouettes, lit cigarettes glowing in the dark. He's the one from the Post. The fraud guy. They didn't say my name. They said fraud guy. That's when I made the second call. Not to Medicare. Not to a lawyer. To Pastor Don. He picked up on the third ring. Walter? I need to talk. But not here. He paused. I've heard some things. So have I said. But you know me. Silence. I used to, he said softly. People are asking questions, Walter. I have answers. Then bring them Sunday, he said. Tell your story. That night, I pulled out a small recorder. It wasn't new, just a handheld one I used to use when taking notes for home repairs or instructions from doctors. Now, I pressed record and spoke my name into it like it was the only truth I had left. Then I slipped it into my coat pocket. Tomorrow, I'd go to my lawyer. But tonight, I'd sleep next to my notes, with a recorder in my coat and a backup of every lie they tried to stitch to my name. As I turned off the light, I heard them whispering again, my son and his girlfriend, right outside my door. What if he finds out what's next? Ever had to fight back silently, while everyone doubted you? You called the cops on your own son? The next morning, my son stood in the hallway with a police warning letter in his hand, veins pulsing in his neck. You called the cops on your own son? No, I said calmly. I called the government on a criminal. His jaw twitched. You've always had a way with words, haven't you? He spat. I held his gaze. Only when truth is all I have left. He didn't speak again. Just crumpled the letter and tossed it on the floor like it meant nothing, like my name meant nothing. An hour later, my daughter-in-law approached me while I was trying to refill a prescription over the phone, still blocked, still flagged. She leaned against the doorway like she owned it. We've spoken to a lawyer, she said. I didn't respond. She went on. There's a process for emergency guardianship. Especially when a senior's becoming irrational. You're unstable, Walter. You're accusing your own family of things you can't even prove. I have proof. She smiled. Cold. Not yet. And in court, the burden's on you. She turned and walked away, then stopped and added without looking back, start packing. We'll need the master bedroom for recovery space. By noon, they had a locksmith on the property. He knocked once, didn't even meet my eyes. I was told to rekey the front and back. I didn't fight it. I watched as the locks I had installed with my bare hands were removed and replaced, each metallic click sounding like a nail in my coffin. My keychain was now useless. So was my name. So was the idea that this was still my home. Later that evening, I found my daughter-in-law at the dining table, printing something. She quickly flipped it over when she saw me. But not before I saw the headline, Physician Evaluation Template, Competency Assessment. "I see you're preparing the script," I said. She smiled like I complimented her outfit. "Just covering our bases." "Tell me something honestly," I said, walking closer. "Do you actually believe the things you're doing, or is it just easier to ride his lie than stand alone?" She didn't answer. She just tapped her nails on the edge of the table and said, "We gave you a warning, Walter. You should have taken the deal." I walked upstairs that night and found my bedroom door locked. My own bedroom. I knocked once. Nothing. Twice. Still silence. Then I heard it, her voice, muffled through the wood. "Just leave him out there. He'll forget what he came for." Laughter. The same kind of laughter that filled the hospital lobby. The same kind of laughter that strips the skin off your dignity 1 inch at a time. I slept on the couch. The cushions were old. The room smelled like lemon disinfectant and betrayal. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up to the sound of my son pacing. His voice was low, whispering harshly into the phone. "He's not letting this go, no, not yet, we need to speed it up. Just file it." Then a pause. He walked past me, not knowing I was awake. A piece of paper fell from his back pocket as he turned the corner. I waited until the hallway was clear. Then I picked it up. Court summons. Filed. In my name. The date of the court hearing was only 4 days away, and they were planning to take legal control of everything before I could say a word. "You stole from your family, and now you want sympathy?" The potluck was always a sanctuary. Sunday afternoons filled with banana pudding, deviled eggs, and familiar smiles. People brought more than food, they brought fellowship. Stories. Laughter. The kind of laughter that used to include me. But this Sunday, the laughter stopped the moment I walked in. I carried my casserole dish like it weighed 50 pounds. Every step felt like I was walking into a courtroom. No one said hello. No one offered a seat. Mrs. Baxter, who used to hug me every time I walked through those doors, gave a tight smile and turned away. Mr. Jones avoided eye contact entirely. The teen boys who once helped me carry chairs whispered into their sleeves. Then I heard it, just loud enough. "That's the one. His own son's trying to protect him. But he keeps accusing." Another voice, sharper, "He probably doesn't even know what he's doing anymore." Then came the sting. A woman near the drink table said flatly, "You stole from your family, and now you want sympathy?" I froze. I turned toward the voice. It was Linda Hadley, the church treasurer. I said nothing. What was there to say when your community already handed down your sentence? I scanned the room. And then I saw her, my daughter. She was standing near the windows, holding a plate, not eating. Her eyes met mine across the crowd. She didn't look away. But she didn't smile either. She looked torn. That thread of guilt that first appeared at the bank? It was deeper now. Her husband nudged her shoulder and whispered something. She didn't respond. She just watched me. Waiting. Questioning. Maybe even, hoping. But she didn't come closer. Not yet. After the final prayer, most people filtered out quickly. The ones who lingered did so in clusters, groups I used to be welcomed into, now treating me like I was contagious. I made my way slowly to the foyer, ready to leave. That's when Pastor Don stepped out of his office. He didn't smile either. "Walter," he said gently. Got a minute? I followed him back inside, past the wooden cross, past the framed photos of mission trips and youth baptisms. The room smelled like coffee and cedar polish. He closed the door and sat down behind his desk. "People are talking," he said. "I know. They're worried about you." I figured. He hesitated, then opened a drawer. "I didn't want to get involved. But last week, I was visiting the hospital. Dropped off care packages. I passed by a room, your son's girlfriend's room. I stiffened. They didn't see me. But I overheard something. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I asked one of our tech volunteers to check the hospital's publicly streamed waiting room footage. My pulse quickened. Why? He reached into his drawer and pulled out a flash drive. "I think you need to see what I saw." I took the flash drive home. Slipped it into the back of the old laptop I kept in my bedroom. The screen flickered. A video opened. Hospital waiting room footage. Blurry but clear enough. There was my son, sitting with his girlfriend. They were laughing. Laughing like nothing was wrong. Then I heard it, his voice, clear as day. "They think he's senile. Medicare won't even look twice. And when the money hits, we'll move the deed and lock him out before he even knows what happened." She laughed. "Then we sell and buy out west." Exactly. It wasn't just identity theft. It was premeditated erasure, documented, caught on tape, and sealed with cruelty. I closed the laptop and sat in silence. They didn't just exploit me. They planned it. Laughed about it. Mocked me. That evening, I went outside to take a walk. As I passed the tree near the sidewalk, I noticed something tied to the lowest branch. A red shoelace. It was small, meaningless, except it wasn't. It used to belong to my granddaughter's Sunday shoes. She was 4 when she left them in my car one morning, and I tied the laces together and kept them. It hadn't been there before. I looked across the street, and saw my daughter standing on the porch. She didn't wave. She didn't speak. But she nodded once. A quiet signal. She knew. I went inside, pulled out the flash drive, and whispered aloud, "This time, the stolen name would cost him everything. I want full medical and financial separation." I stood in front of my lawyer's office in a jacket that didn't quite fit anymore, clutching a folder thick with fraud, lies, and betrayal. Inside it were copies of every forged signature, every flagged Medicare claim, every piece of evidence I had gathered. And now, the flash drive, the recording, was at the top. The receptionist greeted me by name, but her tone was different. Like I wasn't just a client, I was a man dragging truth behind him like a coffin. Mr. Hale, my attorney, wore a gray suit and a face that didn't flinch easily. But when I handed him the flash drive and the folder, he blinked hard. Slid on his glasses. Listened to my summary in silence. When the hospital clip played, my son laughing, describing how he'd erase me, Hale leaned back slowly in his chair. "This," he said, "is premeditated elder fraud. Identity theft. Power of attorney abuse. Possibly even conspiracy to defraud Medicare. Will it be enough?" He opened a drawer, pulled out a stack of blank forms. "It will be the start." By noon, we had filed a petition to revoke the fraudulent power of attorney, formally contest the will update, and initiate a restraining order to prevent my son and his girlfriend from accessing my medical or financial records. "I want full medical and financial separation," I told him. "I don't want them anywhere near my name again." Understood. We also submitted a cease and desist to the law firm that notarized the false documents, and Hale called the Medicare Fraud Department directly to formally request the case elevation to prosecution. I walked out of the building with a thin envelope in hand. But inside that envelope? War. Signed and notarized. That evening, I didn't sneak around. I walked through the front door like a soldier returning from the front lines. My son was in the living room, legs up on the coffee table, holding a cold beer like it was a trophy. He didn't even glance up. "You're late," he muttered. "I was with my lawyer." That got his attention. He turned. "What lawyer?" I dropped the envelope on the coffee table. "This one." He flipped it open and scanned the first page. His jaw tightened. "What the hell is this?" "Your eviction from my legal identity," I said. He scoffed. "You think you can undo everything?" "No," I said. "I know I can. Because you left fingerprints on every crime. Including your mouth." His face twitched. I leaned closer. "How loud do you think you were when you bragged in that hospital lobby?" He went pale. "You recorded me?" "No. You recorded you. The hospital has security footage. You handed me the evidence. I just picked it up." The next morning, a courier delivered the restraining order. He wasn't allowed to access my Medicare, insurance, bank, or legal files. He read it with shaking hands. "You think this changes anything?" "No," I said, "I know it changes everything." That night, the phone rang. It was the Medicare Fraud Division. "We're moving forward with full investigation," the agent said. "And because you were the victim, not the instigator, we've lifted your account restrictions for now." A breath I hadn't realized I was holding escaped. "Thank you. And Mr. Hensley," she added, "we've flagged him in the federal database. He won't be able to file another form under your name, or anyone else's." At sunset, I stood on my porch, keys jangling in my hand, new keys. The locksmith came back and reinstalled my locks. My code. My door. When I opened it, the air smelled different. Not clean. But clear. Like rain after fire. That night, I received a knock at the door, not from my son. From a detective, badge in hand. "Mr. Hensley, I need to ask you about a case involving medical fraud. And I think we're going to need your help. Your son's employer called, he's been let go." The detective sat across from me with a notepad and a voice that didn't need dramatics. "Your Medicare case has triggered a wider sweep," he said. "Turns out your son's girlfriend filed 2 other claims in the last year, different names. Same patterns." I listened in silence. "Your son's name came up in multiple flagged accounts. His voice is on record at several verification lines, pretending to be a senior patient. All roads point back to this house." "They're not roads," I said. "They're footprints. And I swept the porch every day." He nodded. "We'll be issuing formal charges. You'll likely be called to testify." By the next morning, it had already begun. My phone rang while I was standing in the kitchen, stirring my instant oatmeal. "Mr. Hensley?" a voice asked. "This is Suzanne from Eastern Tech Finance." "Yes?" "We had your son listed as an emergency contact and payroll beneficiary. We've just been informed of the fraud case, and we regret to say he's no longer employed with us." I paused. "You're calling to inform me?" "Yes, sir. He had you as primary. We thought you'd want to know." I hung up before my hands could shake the bowl out of my grip. The house felt quieter now. Not peaceful, more like the quiet before thunder. I watched from the window as my son paced the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, barking into the speaker. His shirt was wrinkled. His face blotchy. He looked nothing like the confident man who once mocked me in my own hallway. He looked like a man whose scaffolding had collapsed beneath him. I opened the front door just in time to hear him shout, "No, I didn't do anything. It was his card, he gave us permission." Then the line went dead. He saw me. I didn't speak. Neither did he. But his face said everything. He knew. I had taken the match to his paper empire. That night, the girlfriend came home late. I heard the argument from the living room, sharp, ugly words thrown like knives behind the walls. "You said it was clean," she screamed. "Shut up, he doesn't know what he's doing. He recorded us. You didn't cover anything. I told you I'd fix it." "No. You told me I'd never have to worry." A door slammed. Something broke, maybe a dish, maybe whatever was left of their alliance. The next morning, her side of the closet was empty. Her car was gone. So was she. For the first time in weeks, he came to me. Not yelling. Not sneering. Just, silent. He stood in the doorway of the living room while I read the newspaper. "I need help," he said. I looked up. So did I. "You don't understand. They're freezing everything." "They should. I can't get a lawyer. You had mine erased." He walked a little further in. "Dad." I closed the paper. "No. Walter. Say my name correctly. Use the name you stole, the one you forged. The one you tried to bury." His mouth opened. Closed again. He left. That night, I gathered everything: the original will, the fraudulent copies, the fake power of attorney, the Medicare letters, the flash drive. I took them outside. Lit the fire pit. One by one, I fed the flames. The forged will curled at the edges before bursting into orange. The hospital billing slips turned black like the lungs of the lies they carried. The fake medical consent form cracked in the center, split like the family that once lived under this roof. And finally, the printout of my name, with someone else's penmanship. I held it in my hands. Then let it go. It burned longer than the rest. And I let it. The next morning, I received 2 voicemails. The first was from the detective: "Charges are being finalized. Your testimony will be central." The second was from an unknown number: "This is Midline Collections. We are calling regarding the outstanding balance of $28,700 owed by." I deleted it. It wasn't my debt. Not anymore. I looked out the window and saw a sign in the yard, one I didn't place. It read, "For sale. Owner relocating." But the deed was in my name again. And I wasn't going anywhere. That's him, the one who stole his own father's name. The Oakville diner hadn't changed in 30 years. Same chipped green booths, same humming AC, same waitress who called everyone "hun." It was the kind of place where bad coffee tasted like routine and gossip clung to the walls like syrup. I used to love it here. Until I walked in that morning and silence followed me like a shadow. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. It was worse, it was polite. Heads turned. Then turned back faster. Like if they acknowledged me, they'd catch whatever shame I carried in my coat. I took my usual seat by the window. Waited for Denise, the waitress. She came over slowly, notepad in hand. "Morning, Walter." "Morning." She offered a tight smile. "The usual?" "Sure." She didn't write it down. Didn't need to. She walked away quickly. From the booth behind me came the hiss of a whispered name. "Hensley." Then, louder, "That's him, the one who stole his own father's name." I turned. It was a man I didn't recognize. Young. Maybe 30s. With a plate of pancakes and a loud mouth. Next to him sat my daughter. She looked down at her coffee. Didn't defend me. Didn't argue. But she didn't join in either. I stood. Walked over to their booth. The man gave me a smirk like he expected me to beg. I didn't. I pulled something from my coat pocket, a laminated card, worn but clean. My original Medicare ID. Restored. Official. Validated. I placed it on the table in front of him. That's the name he stole, I said. But it's back where it belongs. He stared at it. Didn't touch it. Didn't speak. I turned to my daughter. She looked up at me, eyes glinting. This time, she didn't look away. I saw the footage, she said. Her voice cracked. I saw everything. When I walked back to my booth, the diner wasn't silent anymore. It was humming with awareness. People weren't looking away now, they were watching. Some with guilt. Some with quiet apology. And one voice, Denise's, cut through the noise as she placed my coffee on the table. You deserve better than what they did to you, Walter. I nodded once. So did she. As I sipped the coffee, I pulled a small envelope from my coat. It held a single photo. Black and white. From years ago. Me holding both my children, my daughter in pigtails, my son with missing front teeth. We were standing in front of the old wood fence I built myself. No caption. Just time frozen. I placed it on the table and stared at it. Names mean something, I whispered. And some of us remember why. Before I left the diner, Pastor Don walked in. He scanned the booths, spotted me, and walked over without hesitation. He sat across from me. Pulled something from his coat. A folded church bulletin. Inside was a handwritten note. We'd like you to speak next Sunday, he said. Not a sermon. Just the truth. People need to hear it. I raised an eyebrow. I thought people already had their version. He shook his head. They've heard whispers. It's time they hear you. I walked out into the sunlight, card in my wallet, community no longer whispering behind their coffee mugs but looking me in the eye again. Not everyone. But enough. And that matters. I passed by my daughter in the parking lot. She didn't speak. But she placed something in my hand, a small envelope. Inside was a key. In case you change the locks again, her note read. This time, I'd like to be on the right side of the door. The headline had my name, but for the first time, it didn't feel stolen. It started with the local paper. Bottom corner, black ink, one column. Elderly man wins identity fraud case against own son. The reporter hadn't called me. She got the story from court records and a whisper from the church. But the facts were accurate. The names were real. The judgment was final. The photo wasn't recent, it was old, grainy, from a town hall meeting 2 years ago. I was holding a plaque for community service. The irony made me laugh. They stole everything from me, and still couldn't take that moment. By noon, the story spread. People didn't whisper anymore, they stared openly. Some looked ashamed. Some nodded with respect. One elderly woman in the pharmacy line touched my sleeve and said, "We're proud of you, Mr. Hensley. What you did, that takes guts." And just like that, my shame turned into their lesson. I returned home to find my son standing on the porch. His face was pale. A copy of the newspaper was crumpled in his fist. "You had to go public?" I unlocked the door without answering. He followed. "I lost everything because of you." "No," I said quietly, "you lost everything because of you." He stepped in front of me, blocking the hallway. "You think people will forget this? You think you'll get to pretend like none of it happened?" I met his eyes. "I don't want people to forget. I want them to remember. So it doesn't happen to the next father who trusts too much." He sneered. "You're pathetic. And you're broke," I said flatly. And in contempt of court. I opened my drawer. Pulled out the final envelope I hadn't used yet. The inheritance revision. Signed. Notarized. Filed. He wasn't just removed from the will. He was replaced. The new beneficiary? The local elder care center. The same one he refused to help me visit when I first asked about volunteering. Every cent of the house sale. Every dollar from the bond. Redirected. He stared at the paper. You donated my future? No, I said. I donated your theft. My future was never yours to spend. The son is cut off, and the father gives his legacy to strangers in need, not blood that betrayed him. The next day, I gave an interview. Not for a news channel. For a church bulletin. It wasn't flashy. No cameras. Just a small write-up, a black and white photo, and a quote. I gave them one line. Dignity is when the name they steal becomes the truth you reclaim. They printed it. At Sunday service, Pastor Don paused before his message and said, "We have a testimony that speaks louder than any sermon." I stood at the pulpit. No flash drive. No documents. Just my story. In full. People wept. Not out of pity, but because they saw someone survive something no one talks about. And I ended it with this. I gave my son everything I had. My name. My trust. Even my insurance. But when he took my identity, I found something stronger than paperwork. I found my spine. The next day, a new paper hit my porch. This one had a front-page headline. He fought his own blood, and won. And under it, a photo of me, not smiling, but standing tall. He used to walk in like he owned it. Now he knocked like a tenant. It was raining the day he came back. Not a storm, just that soft, cold drizzle that makes everything look washed out. I was in the living room, sorting mail, when I heard it. 3 knocks. Not the angry, entitled pounding I was used to. This was slower. Hesitant. I opened the door. And there he was, my son. Soaked. Shivering. Holding an old suitcase that looked like it hadn't been zipped properly in years. His eyes didn't meet mine. "Dad," he said. I didn't reply. I've been staying at a friend's garage. It's temporary. Just till things settle. Still, I said nothing. He cleared his throat. "I'm sorry." That word used to mean something. Now it felt like a borrowed tool he didn't know how to use. He stepped forward slightly. "Look, I know I messed up. But I'm still your son." I was scared. Desperate. And she made it sound easy. Like no one would get hurt. I didn't move. He looked past me into the house. "Can I come in?" My hand stayed on the doorframe. "You didn't come back for me," I said. "You came back because everything else closed its door." "No, that's not." "I gave you a key once," I interrupted. "You used it to change the locks on me." His face crumpled. "I lost everything." "No," I said. "You lost me. Long before the court. Long before the cards." He looked down at the suitcase. Then, softly, "Do you still have the drawer?" I blinked. "What?" "The one by your bed," he murmured. "Where you kept the Medicare card. I used to see you check it every morning." I stared at him. That drawer. The one he snuck into. The one where the theft began. "I cleaned it out," I said. "Burned the fake. Kept the real one." He nodded. Like he knew the symbolism before I did. He held up the suitcase slightly. "Just a few clothes." I thought, maybe I could stay. Just for a night. Just until I find. "You still think this house is a lifeboat," I said. "It's not. It's evidence. Of what I survived. He was silent. Rain dripping from his jacket to the floorboards. I reached into my pocket. Pulled out the key, the one my daughter had returned in a note just days earlier. I held it up. His eyes lit up. Hope. Pure and cracked. But I didn't give it to him. I turned. Walked to the kitchen. Opened a small drawer. Placed the key inside, the same one where my Medicare card used to lie. Then I shut it. And turned back. "You're not locked out," I said. "But you don't have access anymore. Not to my name. Not to my trust. You'll have to knock. Every time." He looked like he'd been slapped. "But you're forgiving me?" "No," I said. "I'm defining you. The same drawer that held the stolen identity now holds the unreturned key. The betrayal reversed, but never erased." He stepped back onto the porch. Nodded. Tears now, real ones. Or maybe just rain. And for once, he didn't argue. Didn't yell. Didn't ask for more. He just whispered, "Thank you for not slamming the door." "I didn't slam it," I said. "But I sure as hell locked it on the past." The screen door clicked shut behind him. And I turned to see the frame where my new Medicare card hung, not hidden in a drawer, but displayed in a case on the hallway wall. My name. My proof. My story. They used to say my name like it was a warning. Now they say it with respect. The final testimony wasn't in a courtroom. It was in the town hall auditorium, during a panel on elder protection. They asked me to speak. Not because I was a lawyer, or a politician, or a polished expert, but because I lived it. The chairs were full. People from the church. The diner. Even my banker sat in the back row, arms crossed but listening. I stepped up to the microphone with nothing but my wallet and a framed copy of my restored Medicare card. "I was raised to believe your name was your most valuable possession," I began. "But no one told me how fast it could be stolen, and how long it takes to get it back." People leaned forward. I trusted my family. I gave them access, not because I was careless, but because love makes you open doors you should have locked. A few quiet nods in the crowd. My son used my name to commit fraud. Not once. Not by mistake. He planned it. Signed papers. Laughed while doing it. And he almost got away with it. Someone near the front shifted in their seat. "But this isn't a speech about betrayal. It's about recovery." I held up the framed card. "This is more than plastic. It's proof that a stolen name can be reclaimed. That dignity doesn't die quietly." Afterward, people came up. Shook my hand. Some with tears. Some with their own stories. A retired teacher whispered, "My daughter forged my checks. I didn't know I could fight back." A young man said, "My dad's going through this right now. You just gave me the words I couldn't say." I didn't feel heroic. I felt useful. The house is quiet now. But it doesn't echo. My daughter visits every Sunday. She brings pie and sits with me in the backyard, where the wood fence still stands from that old photo. She asked me once, "Do you regret not giving him the key back?" I shook my head. "Forgiveness doesn't mean repetition," I said. "It means setting a boundary that says, I know what happened, and it won't happen again." She nodded. Then handed me something. A new picture frame. Inside, the old shoelace from my granddaughter's shoes, now pressed flat behind glass. I figured, some names are worth keeping safe, she said. That night, I took the last step. I went into my study. Opened the drawer. Took out the envelope containing the old, burnt Medicare card, the fake one, the fraud. I buried it. In the backyard. Next to the oak tree where I used to build swings. Not because I wanted to forget, but because I needed it gone. The father closes the drawer on the past, buries the proof of betrayal, and publicly reclaims his name as a tool for others. Weeks later, I got a letter from the Elder Care Center. The donation had been used to build a new wing, the Walter Hensley Resource Room. They invited me to cut the ribbon. I stood there, surrounded by families, doctors, nurses. They didn't know the whole story. But they knew enough. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a guardian. Not of money or property, but of truth, of dignity, of a name no longer stolen. They took my card, my name, and nearly my future. But when I stood up, when I said no more, when I chose to fight instead of fold, I didn't just get it back. I earned it back. And this time, they'll never touch it again. If this story moved you, share it with someone who might be silently suffering. Let's bring these hidden betrayals into the light, because sometimes, justice starts with just one voice saying, "That's my name. And you can't have it."